Welcome to Hallway Conference with Carrie Simpson, the podcast for conference goers looking to make more of their annual business trip. Hear from experienced and successful professionals who step beyond the keynote and breakout rooms, finding gold in ideas picked up in the hallway and perfected on the patio. She's got secrets, and she's telling. Here to start the show, your host, Carrie Simpson.
Hi there, I'm Carrie Simpson. Welcome to the Hallway Conference. With me today is Adam Tomeo from Cisco. Adam and I met, I want to say 6, 7, maybe 8 years ago at an Ingram Micro Cloud event that Adam had participated in organizing. And we reconnected recently when we were trying to help a sales development representative that he had identified in his network find some gainful employment. So one of the things that we wanted to talk about today on Hallway Conference is how you can maintain relationships over a significant period of time, after meeting someone at an event, and how you can parlay that into not just potentially doing business with that person, but referring business to that person, helping that person find people that they need for their business. And, really just our goal today is to talk about how our relationship evolved from, day one Ingram Micro to 8 years later podcast. Talk a little bit about what happened to both of us on the way. And Adam, of course, is going to regale us with awesome stories about trade shows past. He's been in the market a little bit longer than I have. And then we're going to talk a little bit about planning trade shows future. So Adam, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you share a little bit about, who you are, who you work with, what you love?
Well, that list could go on for a long time. Thank you very much for having me first, Carrie. I really do appreciate that. So as Carrie said, my name is Adam Tomeo. I am presently a product marketing manager for Cisco, covering Cisco Secure Endpoint. Been in the industry now well over 15 years, I would imagine. Starting out as an MSP. So I was one of those sneakernet guys way back in the early 2000s. Walking from desktop to desktop, inserting, CDs, and then moved to a national reseller. It's transitioned around a little bit, and they're now the part of Insight. And where I met Carrie was at Ingram Micro during my first version of the Ingram Micro Cloud Summit, where I got to participate in drawing attention to and help get people out here to the Arizona area. I then transitioned out of Ingram, moved along to a couple of different cybersecurity companies and a couple other companies, but now I'm at Cisco. So kind of been running around for a little bit, but found a great home in Cisco and really happy to be here. When Carrie and I met, kind of backtracking, and I think this will springboard us along, one of the things that we like to do is have a morning run at the Cloud Summit. And by no means am I a runner, and I knew that going in. But, my gregarious personality and my extroverted nature said, I'll be up and I'll help with towels and water, because that's about as far as I go. I run my mouth, not my feet. And so I'm meeting up with all of these early morning runners. Carrie was out there. And I think you had a very little one with you.
Mm-hmm.
This was okay. So doing the math, and I'm going to scare everybody here for a minute. I believe this was 2013, so we'll be 8 years.
Been one.
Yes.
He would have been 1 year old, and I remember that event because it was at the JW Marriott in Scottsdale, and not Camelback, the other one. It doesn't matter. But at that time, I was nursing full-time. And every trade show I went to, I had to bring my daughter, my nanny, and my nanny's 3-year-old along with me. So I'm flying all of us around the country, and I'm going downstairs to work the booth, and then running upstairs to nurse. And then I've got my phone with me constantly in case the baby needs me. And there's 4 of us, because back then we didn't have any money. So there's 4 of us stuffed into a 1-bedroom, or not a 1-bedroom, even like a 1-room hotel suite. And everyone else is like, yeah, it's really hard, blah, blah, running a business. And I'm just waiting for the conversations to end so that I can run upstairs and feed my baby and put her to bed, try and balance my life and run back down. So I don't know. Did I bring her running with us? That doesn't seem.
I don't think you brought her running, but I remember meeting her either before or after. But So every day they had a run kind of in the morning. So it was, I believe there's 2 or 3 different days of running. This is a while ago. So don't remember for certain how many days it were, but it really was. I remember meeting the little one with you. And so a lot of that had to do with, one, people love to do things like golf and running and being outdoors. And, especially when you looked at it, I believe, wow, I'm gonna struggle for a minute here. I believe Ingram Micro's Cloud Summit was April time frame, if memory serves me
Usually
correctly.
March or April is the
And so it got a lot of people that were in the Northeast or in the Midwest, especially in northern Midwest. The cold climates of the world. It gave them a reason to be outside. And here, I live in Arizona now, but in Arizona during that time, it is the most beautiful weather you could find of just wanting to be outdoors. Like, again, whether you're golfing or running, or I now take the dog out for a walk in the morning because it's cool, it's beautiful, clean air, and just makes it a lot of fun. And it gets people to forget about the moment that you're stuck in a trade show. And I'm going to use the word stuck because you put on a persona and you put on your technical code persona as you walk through an event. I'm a smart guy. I can do this. I listen to this and I understand these things. You go out and run and it's like, I'm running, or I'm outdoors. I'm outdoors, and it's not an event. These are just cool people with me running around, which is, I think, one of the reasons why, Carrie, you and I were kind of drawn to each other as well. It was cool people, and just, I want to know more about her, and I want to be in, kind of get to know somebody at more of a personal level than just a business relationship. And for that point, it kind of leapfrogs us, because I'm going to jump ahead for half a second, then we'll come back. But Carrie and I have maintained this conversation for 8 years. There's been times when I was running MSSP marketing for an organization, and I was always trying to ring a bell and figure out, how can I get Carrie involved into an opportunity? And I remember having this conversation and going, there's got to be something here. And we kind of moved around and figured something out. It hasn't come to fruition yet, and someday we will. That's all I'm going to say. We will do
We've
business.
already worked for Cisco Umbrella, though, so I think we had our moment in the sun with Cisco before you got there. We worked with OpenDNS, and then when Cisco acquired them, we also worked with what do they call it now? Umbrella. Managed. So now we had a good 5-6 year run with Cisco. I have 0 complaints there. If they would like to give us more money, I will happily accept it. But they were good partners to us, and obviously they make good choices because now you're working with them. So,
well, I tried my best to find a place to call home. So
walk me through the steps for setting up something like that. So you're going to have an event. I mean, you and I have both been to dozens of trade shows, both well run and poorly run, and it's very rare in my experience that they host an early morning anything. Like there is IT Nation Evolve hosts their morning prayer group, and I think they do have like a fitness group as well. I've never participated in either because obviously I'm not an HTG member. I was an HTG sponsor. They don't invite the sponsors into those things. But if you're going to plan something that you want, like I can't remember, did we register for the run or did we just show up and run if we felt like it? Like, how do you get participation in it? How do you ensure people bring the things that they need, like shoes and, I don't know, towels, water bottles?
So a lot of it, and I think that it's a great question. A lot of it has to do with the persona of the people putting on the event, because I can remember some of my peers at Ingram were very avid runner types, and so it started out with, hey, we're going to have a morning run, or with IT Nation, it's been renamed to everything else, and I think they might have brought it back. We had guys that wanted to run and gals that wanted to run. And so in the initial conversation of setting up this event is, we are going to have a run come heck or high water. And we're going to we're going to advertise that as part of this event. So bring your running shoes, we'll supply the towels and water, kind of to your point there.
Mhm.
But bring your running shoes, bring your running clothes. It's beautiful weather. It's, bringing that into the conversation, just like with all the other Cloud Summit events. Golf was always there. It was just bring your shoes. If you need clubs, we can get you clubs. Now, I'm not a golfer either. I'm more like Happy Gilmore, but um, it was always those options, which made it fun. But it boils down to, I think, is kind of knowing your audience, and like you and I talked about a second ago, it's allowing people to not be submerged in this event where nothing else happens. Now, if we were in Vegas, morning run probably not going to happen because most people are up way too long. So it kind of worked out well, obviously being in the Arizona area for the morning runs. But yeah, I think it's just one of those things where you have to kind of figure out, do a lot of people run? Yeah. Do a lot of people, participate in some sort of outdoor activity? Of course they do. Even me who's not healthy anymore, if you put me on a bicycle and let me pedal around the neighborhood, I'm having a good time.
The things that I think about when I think about planning an event like that, like one, timing. How do you make sure everyone's got enough time how do you start it late enough and make sure everyone's done early enough to get them into the 9 a.m. session? Right? Like you want to, like, no one's getting up at 5, maybe 6. And then how much time do they need? And is there going to be breakfast? So do you provide a grab and go breakfast? Or like, how do you, the pitfalls when I think about it, or the barriers to entry. Like if I think about like why I wouldn't go for a run or why I'd register and not bother attending, it's like, oh, closed the bar down last night. Just don't feel like rolling out of bed in the morning. Not going to have time to eat between running and the keynote. I'm going to be hungry all day. So what did you have to do to facilitate, just timing and logistics for a kind of an anomaly event?
So I think part of it is, and the I think the key word there, you call it an anomaly event. I want to make it part of my event, and that way it becomes part of the planning. So if I know, and I'm picking arbitrary times, if I know the run is going to start at 6, we target about a 30-minute run or 20-minute run, whatever that timing is, that everybody gets back to the hotel by 6:30 in the morning. And then we have to give time for breakfast. I got to do my hair. It's really difficult sometimes. And then you have to, kind of T-minus from that point. And so you have to really actually put that into your event plan and say, this is real, and we need to account for it, versus just saying, hey, we're going to go for a run. Adam's got it easy because he doesn't have to worry about his hair. But Carrie's got to spend time doing her hair and makeup, and so now what? Or those kind of things. To me, it's make it part of the event and make it fit into the event. Not necessarily shoehorning it, but conscientious decisions. It's going to take, because it's not just a wake up, roll over, jump in the shower and off to the event you go. This is people are going to get hot and sweaty and dirty and want to shower and really clean up, if you will. So factor those things in, and then I'm going to make you run, so I better be ready to feed you. I'm going to make you run, so I better be able to have water and towels ready for you. I'm going to make you run, so not necessarily make you run, but you know what I mean? So let's make sure that all of these little details are covered, because if you don't cover the little details, now we're going to talk about, here's a bad event. Here's one of those things where you gave me 20 minutes to get ready after a run to go sit down in a conference room and hear a keynote. I'm halfway wet, I'm halfway dirty. I had to, take care of my daughter in the hotel room, so I didn't have time to get ready. No, don't do that. It's just about as bad as not planning food correctly at an event. You want to kill any event? Mess up the food. You're done. Nobody will ever come back to
that
the
event. I can still remember the food at the event. It was so good. That was the first event I went to where I was like, Ingram's got their shit together, right? Like I'd been to lots of other events, but Ingram had it was beautifully catered. There was food everywhere. So you know how that JW has the main lobby area, then you've got that beautiful palatial kind of entrance, and then the bar recessed into the bottom that overlooks the fountain, and then the golf course goes up that way, and you walk all the way around to the conference center and then down some stairs and then into the area. You guys had stations set up everywhere. And it was the first time I'd gone to an event where they had any healthy choices at all. He had those little, I can remember them even today. They were wrapped in paper, so it was nice and sustainable. And they had like carrots and celery, and it reminded, like, I think maybe some tahini to sprinkle on top of them. Like, it was very Southwestern themed, but there was healthy options available all day. If you wanted, like, if you missed lunch, you weren't going to starve. If you missed breakfast, you weren't going to starve. You didn't have to rush to do anything. You didn't have to go looking for anything. So you weren't spending a mile and a half walking all the way back to the place where the lunch was. If you wanted to sit and have like a coffee with someone, you could grab one quickly. And they had all those tables tucked into the sides around where the food was. Like, it made for great little pop-up conversations. Frankly, it's one of the best run events I'd ever been to. And we went to Ingram Micro both as attendees and sponsors, for 5 years, up until March 2020, which was the last one that we didn't manage to get to. So, I mean, really, that makes an impact. Like, I'm remembering it now. How many trade shows have I been to since 2013? So many. And this one, I can still remember what you guys served for food. So that's pretty good.
And again, it really boils down to, and so I'm going to make the mention too, this is not a team of one. This was a team of, not counting the actual kind of event and project management. We had probably 14 or 15 people, pulling strings behind the scene. This is a truly like, the duck in water kind of thing, where, conscientious decisions are made. And for those of you that even think about putting on an event or considering putting on an event or participating in an event, these are the kind of things that, really need to think about or look through, or, create your checklist as you're working through the event. So yeah, having people come in is great. Having people want to come back is even better, and creating those events where people want to come back, or, I guess if we had like, patches or pins, it's, you're the 6-year veteran. Those are the kind of things that make people want to come back. It's, quality show, obviously, but, don't shortcut the food. Make sure that people have things to do in an outlet. Carrie mentioned too, having places for sidebars. I mean, how many times have you stopped an event and seen somebody? And I think the last time I physically saw you was at IT Nation. Here we go, 2016-ish. And it was one of those things where it's like, it'd be great to have a chair somewhere. Well, Tracy had someplace, I think, that I sat with her for a minute. But I just, you have these kind of places because the power of these engagements and the networking that you give to people, they'll remember that too. And like Carrie had mentioned, it's had a bunch of little chair areas where you could sit down for just a minute. Yeah, you might not be part of my event that I'm hosting, but you're going to remember that. And next year, you're going to be like, oh, yeah, I met 10 new people, and I had a chance to sit with 6 of them for 10 minutes apiece. Those are great networking opportunities that you can't negate. And I don't want to stop people from having that at the event either, because that further builds our brand, and our Ingram was thoughtful enough to put these things together, kind of thing. So it was really great to have that opportunity as well, which now takes you to, what do you do from a networking perspective? And I just, Carrie and I are testament of it. It's 8 years in the making of just always kind of keeping in touch. It's, hey, what are you doing now? Where are you at now? Hey, happy birthday, or whatever the case might be. And those things to me are paramount in business success as well. I'll tell a really cool story in a minute, but these are the kind of things that you build on just by hosting an event. Now I have networking connections that go further than just, hey, Carrie was at Cloud Summit. I've got her email address. I'm going to spam her about my latest sale or whatever I'm peddling from a widget perspective.
So when you're planning the event, like your own preparation to create, what I heard there was You don't like bolt on you don't create a conference and then bolt on opportunities for people to do interesting things. You start from the premise that there are going to be interesting things and then build the entire agenda around accommodating or facilitating those things.
Absolutely. It's the key to making it really feel like a complete event, not, a series of, like you said, bolt-on activities. It's part of the entire show.
Like, as somebody who doesn't have a lot of interest in partying late night, I appreciate it when people consider, like, hey, there's a lot of people who don't want to booze it up from 9 p.m. till 2 a.m. How do we entertain them? Or conversely, we're going to have a lot of people who aren't going to want to run in the mornings. What kind of alternate activities can we create for the people that maybe are not going to run in front of their peers, who are going to feel uncomfortable or awkward doing that? Like, you're not going to be able to please everyone. So, how do you pick?
Good question. And I think that, it's, you kind of look at, an opportunity where it's, I don't call it majority rules, but there are things that you could do. And it's funny because I know you and I were talking before we started the recording about kind of cool ideas of things you could do. It's, think about it from a standpoint of, a movie night. If people are more inside, and just throw a first run movie up on the big screen in the theater or in the general session area. You got chairs, you got a 16-foot by 9-foot screen already up there, and you got projectors going. Put a movie on. You got sound already built in. There's things you can do that are not necessarily active if people aren't active, or in your instance, it's, I don't want to be up till 2 a.m. drinking because I don't want to drink all night. I wake up with a headache, or it's, I'm not a runner. I'm something else. And also think about it from the event perspective. What is the event area known for? JW, obviously, we had golf. That was kind of a given. But again, it was a climate-based situation where we could run. If you're in a different area, it might be something like figure down in some Legacy Orange County, California. If you're down near the beach, maybe you make something happen on the beach. And it doesn't necessarily have to be, run on the beach. It could be sandcastle contest.
Oh, we did that in Miami too. You guys ran, remember? Because there was a guy that didn't wear shoes.
Yeah.
You guys had an event at the Diplomat, and we ran the run again, but it was a very different experience because it was still dark out because it wasn't like Arizona where we showed up at 6:30 and it was light. We met in the lobby and it was kind of like grabbing stragglers and then guy without his shoes. And then we had to run through that kind of residential area. And then we did get to the beach eventually. So some venues are better than others, I think, for that run was okay, but it wasn't Arizona good. Did you join it?
So I wasn't part of, yeah, I did. So I had 2013 and 2014 were the two cloud events that I was part of. And then I moved off the cloud team and was still doing it for another couple of years. But, it was Arizona for the 2 years that I was there. And then prior to joining Ingram, I was part of, the reseller where Cloud Summit was, I was a participant. Mm-hmm. And I got to learn all about cloud. And I thought, well, what's cloud going to do? And this was back, before cloud was cloud. Now everything is cloud or SaaS or whatever, which kind of figured is going to happen. So
that wasn't your baby. That was someone else's baby.
Yeah, that was
uglier than yours, Adam.
I'm sorry?
That baby was uglier than yours. So now you're with Cisco. Now Cisco obviously invests a great deal in creating their own events. They also sponsor a significant number of events. What's your level of participation for either of those now? Are you involved in planning events for Cisco, or are you involved in sponsoring events for Cisco?
So as my role has evolved over time, I am, like I said, product marketing manager for Cisco Secure Endpoint. So I am in charge and tasked with, along with a few of my peers, and I will, give them full credit as well. We're tasked with bringing out the messaging for Cisco Secure Endpoint. and how it ties in with the rest of our Cisco Secure portfolio, including things like SecureX and whatnot. I don't want to get too far into the weeds on that, but I get to participate now in actually in the events, doing what I really like to do, which is up on stage, the PowerPoint presentations, or death by PowerPoints, but having conversations, whether it's teaching partners how to sell or enablement trainings to, presenting to potential prospects and clients, the reasons why you might want to consider, secure endpoint. So now I'm building the messaging, I'm presenting the messaging, and I'm helping, put messaging out as it relates to how our product is being developed, enhancements to our product, how we do with, third-party analysts and those kind of things. So moved into a great, opportunity to kind of story tell, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
I participate in partner events where they'll invite us to come talk about product to their customers or prospects because they want to bring in a expert. I don't know how expert I am, but I've been,
Suckers.
Yeah. I can pull the wool over anybody's eyes. But it's kind of what I do now. So I have a partner charter in my role. So partner enablement is something that I'm very passionate about. Again, I've come from MSSP worlds. I've come from MSP worlds. I've come from, the partner community. So that's, a very good, a very high level of opportunity for me. But most of the time now in my role, I'm brought into the conversation. Like I'll present at RSA next year. 2022 is going to be live RSA again.
Maybe.
Yay. We're talking about Cisco Live EMEA in Amsterdam this year. I don't know if I'm going to be participating in Cisco Live in the Asia Pacific region, but we'll be back and I think, knock on wood, and this is nothing to do with just Adam's opinion, make sure I say that, we'll be back to having live events here in the Americas, hopefully, knock on wood, which means Cisco Live, I'll get to do that, kind of dog and pony again with real people.
So you're doing events for your partners as well. You're coming to participate in, let's say, MSP organized, led, and produced essentially events where you're going to speak to the end user and not the MSP about the value of the product.
Yes. So
Okay.
I will do the sales motion as well as I can do the sales enablement motion of teaching them how to tell that story too. So
let's pretend for a minute that we get to have live events again this year. I don't want to talk too much about virtual events. I think that really the digital transformation, everybody take a shot. That drum has been beaten to death and everyone spent a lot of time teaching people how to present better virtually and engage better virtually. And we've spent, a year trying to perfect our webinars, for lack of a better term, just to go back to on-site events again. And I think there'll probably be hybrid events in the future, or they're going to alternate. But most of my MSP clients are getting ready to host lunches and go to client offices again and create events at ball games and hockey games and cocktail parties. What are the best things that you've seen? So in your time with Cisco, working with MSPs, what events went well and what events went poorly? And what are the common denominators that you've seen that lead to a successful end user event versus the ones where you're like, whew, well, happy to be getting on a plane and going home now.
That one's off the list.
Good luck, guys.
Yeah, I'm not doing that one again. So I think a lot of it has to do, especially when you're looking at a sales motion, and I'm not going to, I don't want to talk about me talking to partners conversation. Let's have you have me talking to your customers or prospects. Have a real reason to have this meeting. Obviously, yes, you're prospecting. Obviously, yes, you're trying to either get top of funnel or middle of funnel kind of conversations going. But have a real meaningful conversation or have a real reason for having the event. More than just because people are understanding of, hey, you know what? I'm coming out of the house today to go to this lunch and learn, if you will. I'm making a conscientious decision to leave my house for this event. Is it worth leaving my house for this event? Am I going to walk away with something that's of tangible merit to me? Whether it's figuring out what it is that and I'm cybersecurity junkie. So if we're talking about preventing ransomware, if we're talking about how to use, Carrie mentioned Umbrella a minute ago. So Umbrella is kind of a first line. Cisco Secure Endpoint is kind of a last line of defense. I could tell a great story of how you can use Cisco Umbrella and Cisco Secure Endpoint as a first and last line of defense against ransomware. That's a good story. That's a compelling reason, because ransomware is happening and it's not going away, kind of thing. And there's things that you can talk about in that context where people can walk away from. And even if they don't become your client right away, it's here's those top 5 things I want you to do when you get back, because it doesn't matter what vendor you're using. Hey, use 2-factor authentication. Hey, secure your VPN. Hey, those kind of things. Make it compelling and give them a reason to want to come back to you for having information, being that thought leader. Because if once you become move into that world, it's now they're going to start trusting you. They're going to start asking you, so what would you do now, kind of thing, or what would you do if you were in my shoes, reseller partner? I need guidance. And so make the event something that where people are going to want to go to, where they can walk away with something that may or may not be a sales motion, but it's going to keep them in your back pocket. We talked earlier as well. If you're going to feed people, it's not McDonald's and it's not Burger King.
Think out on the food, because people remember that.
You will kill your event if you run out of food. You will kill your event if you give poor food. And also be conscientious of dietary restrictions and the gluten frees and vegetarians and you've got to factor all that in. So don't make it an outdoor barbecue at the beach unless you're making sure you have Beyond Burgers or something that's you got to cover everybody and make that decision. Make sure when you're checking in on your registration part of it too, that you're asking people about dietary restrictions, because if you're not conscientiously aware and you order 2 gluten frees and you have 3 gluten-free people, somebody's going to not be happy. So make sure you obviously kind of accommodate for all of those things too.
So food is important. Let's talk about timing. One of the things that I try and encourage MSPs to do when they're planning their events is to consider what time will people actually come to the event. And the things that we've seen is if you can host a breakfast event, somewhere nice, right? Like we don't want to come to your shitty boardroom and eat cold egg sandwiches wrapped in tinfoil. So unless your office overlooks the ocean and it's solid glass and people want to camp there forever, you shouldn't be hosting events in your office. Get out of your office and then think about like we're planning a roadshow series right now, and I have clients asking me like, "Well, we'd like to do an event in San Francisco and New York," and I'm like, "Great. How would you like them to pay for their parking?" And they're like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I'm like, "Well, let's assume for a minute that I live outside of San Francisco. I live in Mountain View, and I want to come to this event. So already I'm going to battle 3-4 hours of traffic." So the odds on me going if traffic is shitty are 0, right? So I'm going to register. I'm going to get in my car. It's going to be bumper to bumper. I'm going to say, F this. I'm going to turn around. I'm going to go back to my office. And I don't really care because I didn't have to pay to be there. So I've just abandoned the idea that I'm going to go at all. So I'd like to push everybody out of, you want to draw the main people from that city. But there's a good compromise between being right downtown somewhere where everyone's going to have to come in. And then what, are you going to validate all of their parking? So if you've got $100 a seat budget for food and you're going to operate in New York or San Francisco, that's not going to give you the same caliber of food that you could do if you just bumped outside the city a little bit. Go to Mountain View, go to Redwood City. Yeah, it's still going to be expensive, but it's not going to be like, hey, we got to fight the traffic to get into San Francisco and then deal with that nonsense. Ridiculous. So you got to figure out how you draw the most number of people from the areas that you're servicing. So unless your only service area is a 10-block radius in Manhattan, you shouldn't be having an event in downtown Manhattan. Right? You've got to think about, how are people going to get there? Are they going to take the train? Are they going to take the bus? Are they going to drive? Are you going to serve booze? Right. So if you're going to serve alcohol at your event and everybody's going to commute into the suburbs for your event, what are your responsibilities and to ensure that they then get home safely? Right? There's so many people don't think about these small moving part things, but you got to figure out, how do we get the biggest and best draw? So once they get to the event and they see how fantastic your event is, and you've got perfect food, it's amazing, your speakers are great. Adam obviously is a hardcore, serious presenter, and he's going to wow everyone. But if you can't get them in the door to begin with, this event is going to be a non-starter. So we've seen events, even if they're like farm team events, right? Like baseball events where you can rent out a private box, especially if it's not for, the Blue Jays or whatever. Like you've got your like small farm team communities. People love those things. People love to go to a ball game, especially if they can sit like in a covered space. Football also works well. I mean, any sporting event we've seen works well, but it's almost like you've got to balance the cost of the event with the caliber of the invite. So do you want every company with 5 computers within a 20-mile radius showing up at your event and eating your $100 per person worth of food, and then identifying that, hey, they're not even qualified? We don't even want their business. And we just spent all night whining and dining a company that had 3 computers. So what are you doing before the event to make sure that the right people are coming? And then how do you get them there, and how do you keep them there? So those are the 3 things that I'm really focused on for Hallway Conferences. How do we find the right people? How do we incentivize them to show up? And then, how do we convert them after? Adam, so, all 3 questions.
Let's take the first one. So yes, an exciting opportunity to, the draw, or where is this going to happen? There's never a shortage of sporting events to pick from, whether it's basketball, baseball, hockey, football, or otherwise. Great opportunities there. Do yourself a favor, though, because I'm going to take it to the next point real quick. And you mentioned it, and I don't even think about that anymore, because sometimes they kind of self-filter them out. I'm a 3-computer guy, but now, hey, Carrie just invited me to Game 6 of the NBA Finals to go sit in a box. I'm going to go, and I have 3 computers. Start to filter those people out. Start to reach out to them and make it part of a conversation. So, obviously, making a BDM call down on your registrants is a great way to start with that. Hey, Carrie, I just saw that you registered. I want to confirm your registration with you right now. Carrie, it says here that you have 5 computers on your network, and that's all you're running right now. Is that correct? And you can start to narrow that down to say, this event might not be for your organization. I'd love to meet with you, one-on-one, and we can have that conversation kind of thing. Build it up so that way you're not just going like, hey, get out, you're not worthy. But it's more of a...
do that in a way that doesn't piss everyone? Because I can see like, hey, you invited me to this thing now, and I registered and I'm excited about it. And you're calling me and you're saying like, sorry, you're not good enough for us. So how do you vet them well before that? How do you make sure you're only inviting the ones that you want there, right? Instead of blasting out your entire database and saying, inviting them to show up, and then you've only got 20 spaces, and the 20 spaces all get taken up by, onesies, twosies, fivesies. You don't get any of the 50s, 100s, 20s that would actually generate return on your investment for that event. And now you got to go back, uninvite everybody so you can re-invite the ones that you actually want to show up. So there's some work that you need to do, I think, proactively before you even send out that invite list.
Absolutely.
Sorry. So we do this a little bit with when we're doing vendor outbound to companies where we don't know the count for the endpoints they manage, for example. So, we work with Cisco. Cisco wants to talk to MSPs that have more than 500 computers under management, or maybe it's 1,000, whatever the number is. Right. The first question that we need to ask is, how many computers are you managing? Right. Like, how many endpoints do you manage? And if the answer isn't there, then we have to politely extract ourselves from the rest of the question. But you could go through an hour-long pitch, do all your objection handling, do everything perfectly, and then at the end of it, like if you do your qualifying at the end of that call, you just burnt an hour talking to a guy that had 2 computers and just likes basketball.
Yeah, and so great point there too. It's and garbage data in, garbage data out when it comes to your CRM or buying lists or wherever else you're going to go prospecting and farming from. Making sure that you have accurate information. Cross-checking a list against things like DNB, or looking for, different ways to vet your list. Obviously, before you click send on your Eloqua or your Marketo email blast, it says, here's an event I'm inviting you to. It's targeting. To that point, and this was something, this was really kind of a cool thing too. And one of my woohoo moments at Ingram was we identified some of the partners for Cloud Summit that we really, really wanted to be at the event. And you got to treat them with, the golden, the all the goodness, or whatever you want to call it.
Reverence is the word you're looking for.
There you go. That's a good one. But could you imagine? And now the Postal Service is kind of trying to trump me on my idea, but it doesn't work that way. I actually put my invitation in a FedEx envelope and overnighted it on purpose to, let's call it, the top 50. And it was probably about that mark too. Because, Carrie, if I send you a postcard in the mail and you get a junk piece of mail and you're in a bad mood, because the first thing you do, and I'm using my coaster, in the recycle, it's gone. Yeah. I'm not even going to look twice. But I'll tell you what, if you got a FedEx envelope and it says Carrie on that FedEx envelope, what are you going to do?
I'm going to open the FedEx envelope.
Yes, absolutely. Find your clients, or your golden clients, or the ones that you value the most, or you need to have their VIPs. We took that extra effort. It cost what, $15 on bulk? Now, this was a while ago, so pricing might have changed, and this is different than you going down to your local FedEx office, because obviously Ingram Micro had some incredible rates. But it's factor that in your cost of your event. I need these 10 people there, because a FedEx envelope addressed to the owner of the business is going to end up on the owner of the business's desk. It doesn't get screened through by receptionist, gatekeeper, CFNOs, or anybody else. It literally goes.
I've never heard that before.
It literally comes right into the desk of the boss, and it goes on his desk, because everybody's afraid to open it except for the man who it's addressed to, or woman who's addressed to. Sorry, I don't mean to be gender specific.
I'm wondering if you make it perishable, are they going to open it for sure real fast? Like, can you send perishable stuff to people's offices with invites?
You could do that. Think about, what is that? What are those floral displays made out of fruit? Edibly.
There's one in Winnipeg called Fruitables. So it's FROOT, Fruitables, and I don't know if it's franchise. Edible something.
Yeah, you could do that, because now you're putting something in front of them. But the challenge with that, though, is it puts it a little bit more cutesy, not so business-y.
It's also gone after they eat it, so there's nothing there reminding them of the business after, except like an empty, whatever they put. Why has nobody ever sent me an edible anything? Somebody please send me an edible arrangement of something. Next salesperson trying to sell me something, I expect to have an edible fruit arrangement, possibly with some chocolate or some other things sent to me, please. So any really good BDR trying to get business from managed sales pros right now should know that the way to my heart is food and cigars. Something to consider when you're planning an event is making sure that everybody that attends the event is going to feel comfortable, whether that's, preventing drunk men from pinching somebody's butt at the bar and eliminating that person from the venue, because we've seen that happen a million times, or creating spaces where people are going to feel comfortable and not have to request a special accommodation once they hit the property. Right? Like, I can't imagine that it isn't exhausting that every time you go to an event, you have to okay, well, how are the tables set up? Where's the elevator? Is there gravel that my chair can't traverse on the way out to think about that JW Marriott events. They've got beautiful spaces for events, but there's one that you have to go through a rock garden to get to. That one that they've got on the grass where they have the larger lunches, and they usually set up we got a couple of things set up with the food, and then the DJs will get the front. They have those big ball, light in the dark things. You've been there.
But I really do think it's, especially as we look at more and more of acceptance and being compassionate of others. It's, everything from how do you migrate around the event, and can they, or it's, we've talked at length on food choices, and we talk at length on, accommodations. If it's a hotel and they've got to move, half a mile down. I can remember doing events in Vegas where you're at the MGM Grand and you're on the west wing of the MGM Grand and you got to get to the conference area. That's 30 minutes of time. And if the casino's busy, it's even worse. But you got 30 minutes of what's that?
Think about if you've never been to Vegas. Let's say you're an MSP owner and you've never been out of small town Oklahoma and you got an event in Vegas. You're coming to Vegas. You assume it's going to be like checking into the Holiday Inn Oklahoma West or whatever, right? You show up and there's this like 3-hour lineup just to get checked into your hotel room. And there's like, people don't know that if they've never been to Vegas, that it's not going to be like just walking up to a hotel room desk, waiting for the 2 business travelers and the pilot ahead of you to check in. Right? You're going to have to wait in a lineup of drunk, raucous, I think that's the right word, people. And you're going to have to wait there until it's done, right? So if you decide to cut it close, and you're like, okay, the event starts at 9 a.m. on Monday. I'm going to fly in at 6 a.m. I'm going to be able to do this, 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 and this. Like, understanding the environment you're heading into is important. I don't know if we have the responsibility to prepare people who've never been to Vegas for what a Vegas event is like. But I mean, even in Arizona conferences, right? Like, there are things that I would put on my invitations that I might not put on in other cities. Like, bring a goddamn sweater, people. I gotta tell you, you are not going to enjoy Arizona without a sweater. You think you are because it's going to be 120, but the minute you walk inside that conference center, the HVAC is going to paralyze you. Right? Like, if you've never been to an event in Arizona, you need to know that you need to dress for Arctic temperatures inside and like being in an oven outside. And there's lots of other venues like that, but first timers at events, they don't see them, right? Like, they're just like
layer.
Those like polo shirts.
You see them walking with a blanket from the room.
Yep.
They bringing a blanket from the room when they walk into the conference.
I want to see somebody give away sweaters. Like in San Francisco, like everybody and their dog is going to end up with one of those San Francisco sweaters with the bear on front because they come to California thinking it's going to be warm and then freeze their butts off. That would be a good conference swag giveaway. Hoodies. Give hoodies.
Oh, I was gonna say throws.
For a cybersecurity conference, that'd be awesome.
Give them a bunch of little 4x5 blankets and just, here you go.
Nuggies.
You see them walking around with the shawl.
Or those blankets that they always try to sell you when you go on vacation in Mexico, the colorful ones with the strands on the bottom. They're like a like a blanket with a hole cut through for your head. Like, okay, trade show swag ideas. Take one. Snuggie. Branded Snuggie.
Exactly.
Black shoes. Somebody please give away like flip-flops or those little like, whatever. Maybe they do that at any kind of women's event.
Get the pedicure flip-flops, those disposable, 50-cent ones.
Yeah, because in Vegas, especially,
I've never had a pedicure.
1 in the morning, and you're trying to get from like whatever bar everyone decided to go to on the other end of the strip, and I was like, no, we'll just walk. It's only a mile, and they don't realize a Vegas mile takes you 6. So now, by the time you get back, you've got people in like one shoe, and where did you leave your jacket? Yeah, I've seen that many, many times. But I'd love to see more like female-centric, I guess person-centric, female-centric trade show swag, right? I don't want an ugly men's t-shirt that's going to bunch around my hips and around my chest, and the logo is going to get tucked in somewhere underneath my bust line, and the other logo is like on my shoulder awkwardly at the back, and it just looks dumpy and trashy, and I'm just going to chuck it in the garbage. Like, why? Like, women are going to make up a higher percentage of our attendees and our sponsors moving forward. How can we like create swag that doesn't like get chucked in the bin the minute they get to their hotel room without like pulling the budget on like, okay, we need 4 women's extra small t-shirts. And then like, you have to kind of go with like what's most common, but what can you do instead of t-shirts?
Yeah, it's a huge one. And I, as an event guy who put the events together, Nothing like shipping, 4,000 t-shirts somewhere. No, that ends up being a hot mess. How about
2,000 pounds of coffee.
yeah, so one of my I did VMware partner summit when I was at Ingram, and I had a cool idea because I got tired of crappy luggage tags, and I still have it from this day. And I want to. This would have been 2014, and I know it briefly because it's the year that my mother passed away, and I went up to Frisco to still set up the event just because I needed to get away. They were metal, and they are basically two-piece with a cable tie on it, and it's permanently attached to my backpack. That's another one. Don't ship backpacks either. It's just, unless you are IT Nation, doing IT Nation, and it's your event, don't do backpacks. Don't do T-shirts. Think about the things that, for me, one, I want it lasting. I want something that's relevant. I want something that kind of ties either to the events theme or to my booth theme or my products theme. T-shirts, yeah, they get old. They turn into, my wife uses my old white T-shirts to clean the windows in the house, or don't. No, it's it's cool. It's like the band shirts from college days. Okay, we still got a few of them in a closet, but they don't come out very often. Think about things that are relevant. Think about things that can be reused, or every time they pick it up, and it's just a sticker, that they've got something that they're going to see it and it's memorable, or and then again, think about the shipping and the cost of shipping and storing it if you don't give them all away. It's always great to kind of give them all away, because then you go like, "Ooh, I don't have anything to ship back." But then you got to think about what happens if nobody wants what you brought and you got to ship it back. Little things that are really easy, and to Carrie's point about being kind of, and I'm gonna call it gender neutral as best as I can. Charging cables and things that people need and use on a regular basis. Now I know we're getting into wireless charging days, but the little 3-prong octopus that covers USB and Apple and USB-C. Those things are
cordless chargers cost. We have a ton of them at the house. I didn't buy them, but the key ones that you just like drop your phone on, and you could probably brand those.
Yeah, I'm sure you could. And again, they're small enough, they're tight enough. The other thing that I like, and I've had forever, especially when you're going to events, those little power blocks, the little ones that just clip on your bag or wherever you need to go, because I know invariably, especially when you're at a conference that's high demand on cellular signals or whatever else, the batteries burn fast. So if you're
take the effort to charge them before you hand them to your partners, you can have a group of them under the table charging them up. I think they'd be a dead block when their phone's already dead. It's like, yeah, thanks a lot, Cisco. Like, but if they're already charged, all of a sudden it's like, oh, happy day. I don't have to go back to my room a mile and a half from here to go charge my phone.
Go plug my phone in for a minute, or find some hallway and you're sitting down on the floor with it plugged in, and you Indian style going, "Hi, how you doing?" Just watching people walk by.
In my skirt and my heels, just like camped out on the carpet. Yeah,
because there's no chair around the light, around the outlet, because they know they don't want people to stand around and charge and stuff.
I never really thought about how the hotel might prepare for a group of people who will all want access to things that they don't want to provide access to. Like if you're trying to eliminate people congregating around a certain place, eliminating the I'm just gonna like lift up the carpet and start looking for them though, right? Like I'm moving the plants out of the way, I'm checking under the thing. There's gotta be one here somewhere. They vacuumed this carpet. There is a plug here. I will find it.
Yeah, exactly. I have not seen a cordless, well, I'll just say a cordless commercial vacuum, but yeah. There is something in there. And this was RSA, a couple of years ago. I ended up down this dark, this untraveled hallway, and it ended up becoming a very traveled hallway in Moscone. And so I was sitting on the floor because I'm getting ready to present in another vendor's booth. A vendor invited me to participate and present in their booth. And so I'm sitting in there, and I'm just walking through my slides going, okay, I got this. And I'm realizing that more and more people are now congregating down this hallway. And I was like, what, did you follow me into this hallway?
Was that just
So
like the green room prep area?
yeah, so it was the, you don't get a green room, but you definitely have to find a quiet place to kind of get your thoughts and your head squared away, because I was going to present for 45 minutes. And it was about MSSPs and outsourcing on cybersecurity. Imagine that. But it was one of the things where I needed to find a quiet spot for a minute. I didn't necessarily need to charge, but yeah, I was, found this quiet alcove, and then all of a sudden people were everywhere. And I'm like, why are you here? I'm trying to think right now. I want quiet.
That's how I feel throughout most of the events in their entirety. Like you'll find like a spot in the coffee shop where it's just like, okay, perfect. I can get a little work done. And then whoop, 18 people you haven't seen in 2.5 years show up. And all of a sudden your productivity just goes out the window. Little booths.
So to that point too, and we're always talking about coming back to and circling back on preparing for events. People understand, and event people, start thinking about this. People need to work, and no matter how much I would love to call this an R&R trip to Cloud Summit, since we've been referencing that, people need to work, and people are going to have things where they're going to need to work. Make the conscientious decision to give them that moment too, because they will remember that. My kid brother, I'm changing subject for a second here, but my kid brother was a football coach, and they know that all the kids today are walking around with cell phones. And so it's, look, you got 5 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever it is. Manage through that. If your mom texts you or your dad texts you or whatever texts you, get that remedy, because I know you're going to be distracted and not able to functionally think about this event unless I give you that moment. So put that moment in. Conscientiously put that moment in. Hey guys, instead of giving them 3 minutes to transition from the keynote to the breakout sessions, give them 30 minutes. They might not come back to the event, but more than likely they're coming back to the event. That's why they're there. Give them that 30-minute. Hey, here's a chance to check your emails. Here's a chance to put out the fire drill. Here's a chance to take that one call that you needed to schedule with Carrie so that way she can start calling for you. But whatever it is, give them that little bit of a moment, because it also allows them to go, I just took in all this information. I need to let it all, decompress, and my breathing and slow things down for a minute, because at the end of the day too, if you walk out of the event exhausted, like, wow, I just ran from one end of the event to the other event to get and I had 3 minutes. It makes you feel like you're back in high school again, on a bell schedule. Give them time. Be conscientious when you're setting your schedule. From the morning run and golf, or tea and biscuits, whatever you want to do. Give them the time to do these things and enjoy the moment that they're in with that moment, whether it's the run, whether it's a breakout session or a general session. Enjoy that moment, wrap that session up, give them a minute to regroup before you flood them into the next thing.
Well, Adam, I don't think that we're going to end the podcast with a better thought than that. And we're right at the top of the hour. So I want to thank you for joining us today. I think that's probably the audiogram quote, right? Give people time. I don't like rolling from thing to thing to thing either. Like that transition period is, it's nice to go outside too, right? Like you're freezing your ass off in the conference room. It's nice to go outside, maybe mingle with your peers a bit. You got smokers who are getting antsy. You got, people who are trying to connect, and then, you've only got these little 5-minute segments where you can, like, if you're lucky and there isn't a lineup, you might catch a cup of coffee and a granola bar in between. But a leisurely pace to the event leaves people feeling informed and excited about the future, right? At the end of the event, you want people going home and, maybe they sit next to someone on the airplane and you want them talking about the caliber of the event, how well it went, how enjoyable it was, what they liked about it, instead of them saying like, oh God, the food at that event. Oh, I don't think I'm going to come back next year, right? Like you don't want that kind of impact. So I think that's a great idea. Just taking it down. I can't forget people can't see me.
It's all good.
Taking it down a notch, instead of trying to fit 800 things into a 3-day period, maybe we only need to do 700.
Yeah. And believe me, they'll get the value out of it, and they'll recognize the fact that wow, I don't feel exhausted after a day. I got through this event. I picked up a whole bunch of information. I had some good times. I had some good food. I got to meet some people. I got quiet time in a certain place to hang out or whatever the case might be. And then they gave me the time to digest the information I was receiving instead of herding me along to the next thing to get overwhelmed by.
That's true. I
They'll
don't want
come
to
back
go
to your
from
next
a
event.
marketing event right into a financial overview of whatever, right? Like I'm processing what I've learned about marketing, thinking about how I might be able to apply it to my business. And then I've got to go sit down in this thing focused on profit margins and this different moving parts. And my mind's in one spot. And now I've got to switch it so fast to the next one that I'm not really absorbing what I learned in the last session. And half of my mind is still back in that session while I'm trying to get into this one. Especially if you've got business owners and leaders in the conference. If it's technical, well, they're probably used to, okay, we're going to learn about this. We're going to learn about this. There's going to be a test. There's going to be an evaluation. They're getting their certifications bumped up. But for those of us who are going to learn, if we don't have any time to learn, we probably aren't going to learn.
Yeah, now you're cramming for finals and you didn't read the book all semester.
Well, and is there any value really, like if you think about the way that people are going to react when they get to the point, how many events have you been to where nobody's gone to a single session? Where you're just like, these guys have been in the bar for 3 days. These guys have been on the patio for 3 days. They just showed up to hang out with their buddies. Right. So when you get to that point where, like, I see a lot of that at IT Nation where owners just show up now, they can't be bothered to go to sessions. How do you continue to make it attractive and interesting 8 years running? And then, I mean, what about the people that are just going to show up, hang out, drink, and talk to their peers? Like, are we planning the event for those guys? Or are we planning the events for the ones that are actually going to sit in the sessions?
Well, okay, so obviously they're showing up for 8 years now in a row, and they've kind of turned it into the good old boys club or good old people's club. But at the same time, give them a reason. How about if you go, hey, you know what? I know you're not going to every session, or you haven't seen any sessions, or you haven't checked in with the little badge scan, whatever the case might be. So you can pretty much identify who those people are. Give them something else. Make them re-engage with you. Hey, for all of those that like to ditch school, we've got these cigar break, or we were talking cigars earlier, or we have a martini break, or we have a golf break, or we have a, ditch school day, senior day, or whatever you want to call it, senior ditch day, because you've been at this event 8 years, and I know that the content's pretty much the same, but it's new, vendor information maybe, but you've been here long enough. So let's do something specific for you. Let's give you a tour of something. Figure it out, but identify who those people are, because obviously you can do that because they're not getting their badge scanned and walking into different rooms. And find something for them.
Your best partners, if they show, right? Like if your partner didn't register for IT Nation, if the large ConnectWise partner didn't register and just popped into the event, it's not like they're going to be able to say, I'm sorry, sir, you need to leave, right? They're not going to jeopardize the relationship. So how do you bring those people back into the fold? I mean, if you think about it from a vendor's perspective or a sponsor perspective, we want those people in the room, right? I didn't come to ConnectWise to talk to the companies that just bought ConnectWise yesterday and have 3 employees, right? Like as a vendor, we want a wide spread of engagement, but like we need the partners that are abandoning the events to be interested in coming back to the events.
Yeah, again, you got to give them something, a reason to draw them in. Advisory councils are huge on those kind of things too, where it's, sit down with those VIP partners and I'm just, and I don't want to pick on ConnectWise. I still know a lot of good people over there. I managed them for years too. Think about, you've got these great people there and you're trying to provide value to your vendors that are buying and sponsoring these events. But these folks that are buying and sponsoring the events, whether it's Cisco or MSPs that are trying to get in front of these vendors or in front of these prospects, think about what it, ask them from your partner advisory, ask them what it is that will help them come back in and re-engage. It's great that you're showing up, to Carrie's point. It's great that we have you here, but how do I get FaceTime with you, so to speak? And maybe it turns into, part of the sponsorship package is a VIP session with, the good old people's club. And, you sit around and it's just, you get 5 minutes of non-necessarily PowerPoint presentation because they don't want to deal with that stuff anyways. So why are you going to get them mad on that? Give them a 5-minute session of, give me your best pitch in 5 minutes. Why do I want to listen to you? What do I want to know about you? And make it something where, you can have some fun with it, make it a raffle, make it a limousine ride around town. So you're kind of all trapped, captive audience. Find different things to do because these guys all hang out together. And I keep saying guys understand or gals understand. I mean, just people. Put them in a limousine and tour them around the city and then put vendors in there with them. It's a captive audience now.
Thank you for joining us today, Adam. It's been a pleasure talking to you again. I'm always delighted to spend a little bit of time with you. Did the guy find a job?
He actually did land, yes. SaaS company. Guys, real quick too, and this is the last piece I want to talk about from a networking perspective. Stay involved with your network. Literally, and I alluded to it earlier, I actually, when I transitioned out of Ingram, I was introduced to the Cylance hiring manager on a Friday. I interviewed on a Monday. I met the team on Thursday. I started the following Tuesday. But that's because my network introduced me and my network was involved, and the people that I engage with. Stay active, stay part of, your network on LinkedIn. Yeah, I get 100,000 people asking me, I want to follow you. But the contacts that I made with Carrie when I met her back in 2013, it still exists 8 years later. I know her, I know Tracy, I know all the, kind of the people we all run together with, and I still maintain contact with them. I'm still talking with Eric Simpson, and I'm still talking with all those guys. Mm-hmm. It's part of my world. It's part of, the engagement. So
there's people that have been around the channel way longer than you or I that are a wealth of information just on one of the things that I've really found interesting is you get new vendors that come into the channel. And they're like, well, what do you think about this? And then you and I would be able to say well, that relationship kind of went weird because this and this happened in 2019, or that company was acquired by this one. This person doesn't like that one. And this channel chief moved over here. And they didn't used to get along. There's so much weird baggage and gossip that has come along in the channel for the last 20 years. It's nice to know Eric and people like that who've been around a lot longer than we have, who can say the reason that's failing is you don't understand the relationship dynamic from back in 1997. That's maybe sorry, Eric, I don't know how old you are. That's probably not fair, but there is going to be things that you don't know as a new person coming into the space. And I watch new vendors roll in all the time. And they're like, oh, well, we're just going to do this, this, and this. And I was like, oh, well, that's going to go shitty, you guys. That is not going to go well for you. And then trying to backpedal and say well, here's why you shouldn't do that or can't do that, right? You can't. And then trying to unravel it just based on 10 years of history that you're aware of that they're not.
Yeah.
So it's always good. I always say if you're a brand new vendor in the channel and you want to figure out what events you're supposed to be sponsoring this year, go talk to the people that are sponsoring events every year and ask them which ones they do and why they do it, what their ROI was like. Don't take the event sales rep's word for it. They're trying to sell you an event sponsorship. Yeah, you got and remember things when they give you the count of the people that are attending the event, they are including the people that work for them, which make up half of the attendees, right? You go to a large event and at least a quarter leading up to a half of the people attending the event work for the event organizers, the event sponsors, the events. Then you get the sponsors. That takes up a good third of the count. So whatever they tell you as far as attendees go, have that. That's how many MSPs are coming to your event. The rest of them are employees, vendors, sponsors, randos, caterers, I don't know, band members, bartenders, the people that bring those little animals that we get to pet.
It's your nanny and the 3-year-old.
Yeah. Got my kids on the floor trying to buy some Cisco products. So remember, right, if you're going to try and figure out how you're going to navigate events in the channel for the next couple of years and you've never sponsored any of them, there's a wealth of information out there, and your single source of truth should not be the vendor hosting the event. On that note, So thank you, Adam. It's been a pleasure. Do you want to let people know how they can get in touch with you if they're interested in talking to you about inviting you to present at one of their partner events?
Absolutely. So email address for me for Cisco purposes, A Tomio. So A Adam, A Tom as in Michael, EO at Cisco.com. Feel free to reach out to me. And guys, I'm actually really engaged with our MSSP and MSP organization within Cisco as well. So I'm working with some of the Cisco partner management on that. So please do reach out. I'd be happy to have the conversation, or at least, steer where that goes. Anybody else, hey, you can find me on LinkedIn. So Adam Tomeo, I believe, is my URL for LinkedIn. I know it'll probably end up somewhere in the invite as well. So connect with me. This is how you build your network, and this is how you build friends, and this is how you can go to folks and say, hey, you know what did you think of that event? So connect with me, please. I'm pretty much open to everybody, as long as you're not going to try and peddle me and sell me, life insurance.
Ha! You can always use more life insurance, Adam.
Thank you, Carrie, for having me.
Thanks for coming to the Hallway Conference. We'll look forward to seeing you again next week in the hallway.
You've been listening to Hallway Conference with Carrie Simpson. We work in the managed IT services industry and look forward to providing solutions to sales leaders, business technology manufacturers, distributor SaaS vendors, and resellers. To find out more about Carrie and her team, visit www.managedsalespros.com. And we'd love to connect with you on LinkedIn. Search Tinfoil Hat 2. Will we see you at this year's annual conference? We will if you're in the hallway.